Welcome back everyone to another episode from Ampro Engineering. As you can see, the Hilux is back. I took it out for a 4-hour run with the Diablo crawlers on New Year's on Mount Diablo in Northern California, and it was an absolute ball. Unfortunately, the truck did take a slight tumble down a hill. It rolled 70 feet. However, fortunately, the only casualty was the mirror, which popped out of its little spring over here, so I've got to put that back together. So I was pretty happy about that. All the 3D printed wheels, the transmission lift and motor repositioning were absolutely awesome, so I was super happy about that. But I finally came to the conclusion that I wanted to install the proper hitch that I designed for this truck years ago. I'm going to put on my Ampro rear tube bumper. This particular bumper has been out for probably around 7 years, and I absolutely adore it. However, I have made some slight changes to it in terms of reinforcement. I've added some gussets in here, and I've also changed the receiver style trailer hitch to have some incorporation with an existing member in the rear of this truck. So this is what we're going to install here. But before we do that, I did want to make a note that these little frame rail extensions are notoriously weak, and I had intended on designing some replacements. However, it occurred to me that I was just as well able to fill them with an epoxy resin, and this completely resolved the issue with these having cracked kind of along this little transition between this boss and this member over here. And again, this is just an epoxy resin. However, if you got some JB Weld or something to fill the void, I highly recommend it, whether or not you do any kind of other upgrade to this truck. The rear bumper does tend to take a beating if you are heavily abusing your vehicle, so I did want to show this before we got moving. In order to begin the installation, you're going to have to remove the original bumper. Now, this truck hasn't had its original rear bumper in a decade, so we'll just pretend that it's here, and what you're going to have to do to remove the back bumper, unfortunately, is as this piece right here in the center has to be removed, you will have to pull out the entire rear carriage. That will gain you access to the 2 screws here that hold the back bumper on, and you will be able to remove it. To pull out this whole carriage, you're going to have to remove the rear shock shackle, this screw right here, which holds a metal bar that reinforces the rear of the chassis, and this screw right in front of the shackle, which is self-tapping. You will have to do that on both sides. There are 2 variations of this back bumper. This particular one has additional ports here for lighting. It's not necessary, but it's something that I wanted to have. The other variation has all these filled in, so it's just a basic tube bumper. This part here on top, it's like a little brace here. This is what secures the factory Tamiya spring for the exhaust hangers onto this brace right here. So you do not have to order a separate part, it does come with it. I'm gonna go ahead and paint this, but I did want to show it to you prior to that. The rear chassis extension has been removed. At this point, go ahead and unscrew the rear bumper. Just get your screwdriver in here and the entire assembly will come off. This is what I'm going to replace it with. Now, if you are like me and like the little touches that Tamiya put on this truck, like the vibrating exhaust, don't fret, this will accept all of it without any kind of modification. You have to clean out both of these holes, or I should say both sets of holes, with a 1.5 millimeter drill bit or equivalent, and clean out these holes here with a 2.5 millimeter drill bit. You have to clean these out with a 1.5 millimeter bit as well. Now, you don't need to install the vibrating exhaust with this, but just note that it is a direct installation. In fact, if you do want to install the components that do comprise the entire exhaust system, you will need no additional hardware to make this work. In fact, everything here will work off of the original Tamiya rear bumper hardware. This one has a lens right here and a grill, also part of the assembly, that go into these areas here, like so. The other variation of this is simply solid. So it's a standard rear bumper. I happen to like the little accessory here. This is actually on a switch, which I can turn on manually in the event that I simply need more light. I've got 2 very high power 5 millimeter LEDs. You will receive 2 of these little retainers. These are held on with a M2 machine screw, which you will have to add to this assembly. If you are interested in this version here, I'm going to apply some model glue on this little ridge. It is very, very important that you do not apply any kind of super glue, because it will completely fog up the lens and ruin the effect that you're trying to go for here. Just use a very high quality model glue. This one is a Testors or Model Masters brand here. drop in the lens. The lens is going to be a separate part that you will have to purchase because it is a different material. So there's that one lens. I'm going to apply a little bit more adhesive on this area here because of the lens cover that goes on top of this. And again, this is only for this version of the rear bumper. And we will set that right on top. Mock this up on the older bumper to show you what we've got here. In the event this is installed on the original bumper, you are going to have all this here that you have to remove. So simply unscrew these from the original bumper and use the exact same hardware on the new bumper. To make this a little bit easier, I found that if you put the screw on one side of the little retainer and thread in one side first, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to hold in the spring and leave it a little bit loose. Okay, just tighten up all four. Again, just until they stop, and that's more than acceptable. Place the retainer here on top. Route those two screws. And that should do it. I am only running one exhaust pipe. The last part of the installation is to actually mount it to the rear frame here. Again, the nice part about this installation is that it does not harm anything factory on the vehicle. It uses all original hardware, mounting locations, and all that stuff. Okay, cool. And it's in. This can be as far as you want to go, or you can also install a receiver hitch. This little guy right here. These only come in stainless steel, so they're a little bit more expensive, but if you're going to be hauling something very heavy, you want to have the stainless steel. It is also compatible with the RC four-wheel drive drop hitch. However, when installing it, you're going to see here that it doesn't seem to want to go in very easily, and the reason is there's just some residual in here, so let's go ahead and clean that out. I've got this square file here that I'll just kind of push in and go back and forth just to clean out any residual and knock down any ridges. And now you'll see slides all the way in and out with no problem at all. You also want to make sure that the M3s fit in here. Now, I've worked very hard to perfect this, and the screw should just barely fit through here. These aren't as easy to design as the nylon because there is a particular shrinkage rate with the stainless steel that you have to make sure is perfect. Otherwise, screws won't fit and other geometry simply won't properly mate up here. To install this, we're going to clip this hook area onto this bar and kind of wiggle it back and forth to really get on there. What you want to do is just make sure that this thing properly binds in here. You want it to be tight on this bar because if it's not, it's going to flex. And flexing will deflect the load back onto the bumper and onto this bar in a location that isn't going to be sufficient to properly tow a trailer. So you want it to be real tight on this bar. If it doesn't seem to want to go in, again, get yourself a little round file and very carefully smooth it all out because it simply could have some residual material on there. These are designed, as you can see here, for a self-tapping screw. However, I'm going to be putting quite a lot of strain on this and don't want to rely on the self-tapping screw, so I'm going to drill this hole out to a 3mm hole and simply route a machine screw through this with a nut. These are 10mm long M3 machine screws. You can see that they protrude from the top, and I'm going to use these standard M3 nuts. There should be enough clearance so that it doesn't come into contact with the wire. And when both sides are in, I can hold it with some pliers and tighten these up. This is going to be absolutely sufficient for most people out there, but I ended up discovering that I was really close to this piece of plastic here and figured, you know what, it's doing nothing else. Let's go ahead and use it. So with a couple of self-tapping screws, I drilled a 2.5mm hole and simply run a couple self-tappers straight into there. This is an unnecessary step, but some of us are a little obsessive compulsive when it comes to making sure that there's no movement and ample rigidity. What's important to note is the reason I've got this on this bar over here is this plate right here, this bracket tends to rock up and down. So if you apply a load to the bumper, like this, it'll tend to push the bumper down, or if you whack the bumper on something, it'll push the bumper up. So if you've got the receiver hitch here, it locks it into place and there's absolutely no movement of the rear bumper, because you can see the back bumper is really only held on with this screw and this screw, and I found that to be insufficient. I didn't install the LEDs because I have some plans for them right now, but just note that you'll want to have the two legs of the 5mm LED routed through that slot right there. And I am simply going to use 2 more M2 machine screws to just hold that little retainer in place. Go ahead and reinstall it. Gone ahead and tightened up everything here at the rear end. Make sure you haven't missed anything because you don't want this stuff rattling loose. The receiver hitch slides right on in there. Unfortunately, I can't find the screws. I'm sure they're here somewhere. I'll find it the minute I publish the video. So the hitch is now installed, and again, you can tell looking at it from the side that using the drop hitch will cantilever quite a lot of load toward the bottom of the back bumper. This will very easily cause the back bumper to twist downward because of the single screw mounting that is factory to this truck. However, using that little hook at the back here has locked it into place, and you can see the resin filled frame rails, which I recommend regardless of if you do this upgrade or not, because these are incredibly weak in my opinion. Well, everybody, that wraps it up. Remember that there are 2 versions of this rear bumper. Neither of them require the receiver hitch, and they are direct replacements to the Hilux. Part numbers are in the description. Thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a comment if you have any questions. Remember that you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Ampro Engineering on both. And before you take off, please check out the band Blue Pinto. They allow me to use their songs in my videos, and a link to their Facebook page is in the end credits. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.